I'm going to go through some financials, update you a little bit on some information year to date through October. So far, we didn't raise our rates to cover what our power cost was going to be this year. We talked about that last year at the member meetings. Consequently, we're a negative $385,000 in margins. And a couple of reasons for that. One is a higher power cost this year, but year-to-date sales, we are almost $3 million less than last year. And same way with the purchases, about that many less purchases. Power costs going up, our dollars expense is almost 1.22 million more for 2.8 million less. Power cost through October of last year was about 6.5 cents. This year it's 8.1. You can see the difference. Conversely, though, we've gotten a little bit better as far as new services. 66 through October, and we were at 47 last year through the end of October. So we're a little bit ahead. And Chris mentioned earlier that there's at least 14 new irrigation systems that are going to take place in the bottoms down there that we'll want service by next spring. So we'll be busy, and we have been busy with new business. A few things now. Just finished our strategic planning with the board and staff, and really our areas of emphasis for the planning was rates and our financial goals for our lenders, member services, safety, and technology. That's the areas we're going to concentrate on, and we will have that plan and our goals up on our website here when we get it approved at the board meeting. As Keith stated, we are finalizing our new long-range plan. That's going to be good through 2038. Our last long-range plan was done in 1982. So RUS, who is our financing body, stated before we have any more loan applications, we have to have a new long-range plan. I understand that. But what the long-range plan will do is then help us generate a new construction work plan. We talked about, the guys talked about being able to have a redundant system. One of them will be, we'll be looking at siting substations. One in particular is in the Smithton area that we want to site fairly quickly because of the subdivision growth south of Smithton. There's quite a bit of it, and where we have our Smithton sub and our New Athan sub, it's just right out there where we need a substation. They're both at the end of the lines for each subs, and we're just seeing a lot of growth down 159 from that. So that's going to be one of our main items in our next construction work plan is a substation up there. One thing we are also doing is looking at our line extension policy for new services and subdivisions. And what we're doing is kind of wanting to make sure we have an equitable extension policy that treats the new customers as fair as what our existing customers are, and making sure through board action that what we give in line up front, we can determine how much is that in loan that we have to get afterwards. And with costs always going up, either material or different things, that we can hold our facilities charge or our consumers charge, whatever you want to call it. It's that fixed charge on your bill every month. I think by redoing the line extension policy and making it more equitable, that we can hold that for a lot longer period. We won't have to keep going up every so often. And that's really the main thing we're looking at as far as the line extension policy. On our power supplier front, we think for next year the power cost for Monroe County Electric is going to be about 7.5 cents. They haven't finalized their budget yet, but it's getting close. A couple other things there with SIPC. Both units over Prairie State are now commercial and operational, so they're up and running, and we're getting power out of that. And then Norris Electric Cooperative up in Newton, Illinois, is going to become a wholesale buyer from SIPC starting January 1st, 2013. That's kind of what helped bring the rate back down for us in 13 for next year is the additional sales to Norris. And they have an option to become a full member, which we would like to see happen. That will help spread out costs even more if they become a full member. But it's a 5-year, right now it's a 5-year contract. Last year, here at the member meetings, we talked about what we're trying to do with the rates in 2013. And I think what I used the term last year was unbundle, but the new word for it is decouple now. So take it for what it's worth. But for 2013, on our residential bills, well, all our bills will be decoupled. And what I mean by decoupled is we are separating our distribution expenses from our power cost. And so we want to make sure, regardless of a mild winter or a hot summer or a cold winter or a mild summer, that our fixed costs are recovered, and basically the power cost is a pass-through. So if you want to leave your lights on all night, you're going to pay the power for it. But I am getting my fixed cost that I need in my consumer charge. And then we talked about what that breakout's going to look like. This will be your February 1 bill. That'll be your January usage. We'll have a consumer charge that'll be $35. Our distribution delivery charge is 2 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's the cost of having a system built big enough when it's hot or when it's cold for everybody to use their power. So if it's a mild summer or even a mild fall or spring, you're not using any heating or cooling. It's going to be a minimal cost there. The energy charge then is whatever that costs for the class. If it's a residential class or a commercial class, that's going to be calculated, and that's going to be just a straight pass-through. And then your WPCA, which will be a plus or minus if the power cost goes up or down in a particular month. And then your tax. We also are working on time of use rates for our dual fuel customers. We still have about 150, 40, 50, somewhere in there. Those are the ones that have the sub-meters on their heating systems, but they also may have a fireplace or a wood furnace or a gas furnace along with it. And then also the commercial and irrigation accounts, trying to work with them, because the demand component from our power suppliers really went up, and that really impacts the commercial accounts because they are demand accounts, and that charge has just went up quite a bit these last 3 or 4 years. So we're working on that. Another thing off the top of my head when I was thinking about it today on my comments tonight is, and Alan mentioned about it, but it kind of just struck me that, we're trying to get more people on the budget billing and the levelized billing. And it just kind of struck me, if you got on the levelized billing plan on your February 1st bill, you'd actually push off that rate increase on yourself for the full increase for 12 months. I shouldn't have told you that, should I? But just think about that. The levelized billing plans is a rolling 12 months. It's taking your previous 12 months. So the rate increase doesn't go into effect until February 1st. You got 1/12 of it. So as it goes, you'll see the rate increase finally fold in until 12 months, and then it's a full rate increase for you. I kind of had an epiphany, I guess, one time this afternoon, and it just kind of hit me. But that's what the budget billing will do for you this upcoming year if you want to take advantage of it. Now, would like to just kind of talk about anything anybody has any questions on. I could talk about deregulation and aggregation if you want me to, but I'll open it up to the floor if you have any questions, or I can proceed a little bit on the deregulation and aggregation if you so choose. Or we can review the tape, and if it's not good, we can redo it all again and stay here all night until we get it over with. Might be 4 or 5 hours, but we'll get the take right. Okay, well, deregulation, and that was mainly the Ameren customers and ComEd customers. You know, that law went into effect in 1997. It was a group of about 80 people from all different aspects of society. You had utility officials, you had the Citizen Utility Board members, legislators, renewable energy people. All of them were kind of sitting at the table trying to write this bill, and they finally got it passed. But it was really driven by the large users, like an ADM or a Caterpillar or a John Deere, large industrial users. They were wanting choice, and so they got that pushed through. The reason, how many of you have been solicited by mail for energy here in the last probably 12 months or so? You know, some it should say now that, you know, on the front it should say for Ameren customers only. They just do a mass mailing. We don't give our database out. We're never going to give our database out of our members. So they just mail it to whatever zip code, and if it happens to be Monroe County customers and Ameren customers, then so be it for them. But they've worked with them to get them to, you know, make it Ameren customers that it's affected by. But the choice for residential consumers really didn't take place until 2007. That was when the law opened it up to them, and at that time there was no market. No, what was called an ARIES, an alternative retail electric supplier. There weren't any in the state to market to the rural, or not the rural, but the residential consumer. And so you had the economic downturn late in 07 and then through 08, which basically slowed the economy, slowed the growth for the need of electricity. I think a lot of people, and we saw it too, a lot of people cut back, didn't use as much. You don't think 100 or a couple of 100 kilowatt hours makes an impact at your home, but you see it all across your membership, or, you know, across 1 million consumers. Well, that makes an impact, you know. And so what ended up happening is there started to be capacity in the market. And then you had this, all the fracking taking place out in the East Coast and Pennsylvania and different places, and you started seeing a lot of natural gas deposits come in, and so that drove the cost of natural gas down. It just deflated the power market, and you're seeing it, you know, right now. That's why the marketers came in, because they could go and buy a couple of years off the market for a short-term gain and sell it. Does anybody know who the original aggregators were? Anybody want to take a guess? Maybe even what years they might have done it? Think of who the original aggregators would have been. Your electric cooperatives. That's who did that. What do you think they did in the 30s? They went out and signed people up together to get service in the rural areas to where the IOUs didn't want to serve it. We were the original aggregators. We've kind of lost that message across the years. We have fewer and fewer people who remember seeing the lines being built into their house. You know, my kids today have never known what it was like to be without electricity, except when maybe a rainstorm comes through and knocks it out for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. People don't know, you know. So we were the original aggregators, and we've forgotten that. We don't tell that message enough. But as part of what we did, you know, the history of it, we planned for our future. Just kind of like what we're doing on our distribution lines. We're planning for our future. If we have growth, we want to be able to serve it economically, hold the cost as much as we can. Well, that was the same way for us when we were looking at where we're gonna get the power from. We went together and formed a generation co-ops, SIPC, Soyland. If any of you remember Soyland, it's Prairie Power now, but you know, neighboring states associated over in Missouri and Hoosier and Wabash over in Indiana and East Kentucky, and those cooperatives went together and they put in plants. Well, plants cost money, and we bought into Prairie State. I think that's still a great investment. It will be for years to come. And so when you go to that light switch and you want to have power, I know it's going to be there for you because I know where the physical assets are. These marketers, they're just buying paper. And when the markets recover, and they will, I think this last election is going to help us do that one way or another. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, he's going to have a fight. He's wanting to shut down coal plants. And that's what's going to take place. So what's that going to do? That's going to dry up the capacity. And so that's going to raise the market prices. Well, when the marketers don't have any profit in it, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to leave. You know, the longest I've seen is 2 years, guaranteed price on a contract. They'll give you 3 years, but the third, there's no price on the third year. That's the longest I've seen right now for a marketer to give pricing. They've guaranteed 2 years, but that third year's been no price because they don't know what's going to be. I don't know what's going to be either. My gut tells me that the prices are going to go back up. We're going to be very competitive in the market then, but right now we are not. But that's because we've planned and we've put in our pollution control units to meet emissions and done everything by the book that the government's told us to do. We've done it by the book, and we've tried to be the white hat guy all the time. You know, we've played by the rules, and right now it's biting us because we have. Our costs are higher. But I think in time it'll be back to where we're very competitive again. But I think that's where we're at with the aggregation and deregulation. I don't know if we're going to be forced into it by the legislature. You've seen all the aggregation referendums that were on this last ballot. I think all but maybe 2 or 3 passed. They're all aggregating. Those people in those aggregations, they have to opt out if they don't want to participate. You're automatically enrolled into this aggregation system, so you have to opt out. You have to actually make the call and opt out yourself. But if we are forced into offering choice to the membership, it's not going to hurt Monroe County Electric Cooperative. We are a distribution cooperative. Where it's going to hurt is SIPC. They're the ones that has the debt in the plants. And if they can't sell enough power to make their debt payments, then that's going to be played out, I think, in the courts, either by bankruptcy or being sued by their creditors and going that route. But I don't have that crystal ball, and if I did, I wouldn't be here. I would be off somewhere making a lot of money. But I don't, and it's just hard to tell what's going to happen. I think we'll see a lot of movement these next 2 years before the next general election, as far as the House and Senate seats go. I think President Obama will really work hard to go after coal plants, go after by the use of the EPA to really clamp down on emissions. And I think we'll see the effect of it. The market prices will go back up. We've already seen it over in the East Coast. Our Midwest Independent System Operator, which is out of Indianapolis, there's another one just like it over in it's the PJM, which is Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Maryland. It's another independent system operator. They opened their bids for, it was the 2015 futures. It was 300% higher. It opened up as far as the bids on their market pricing for 2015. So we see it in some areas already going up. It just hasn't hit here in the Midwest yet. But I have a pretty good feeling it will before too long. But, I'm all full of good news for you. I know, I really am. Is there anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
The Prairie State's power plant, is there any danger that would be put out of business?
Right now, as far as the regulations are written, and even the ones that were overturned in court at the start of the year that would have been tighter emissions, they would have met those emissions. EPA has appealed that ruling by that district court out in D.C. So if those get put into place, it's still going to meet those emissions. It's the cleanest coal plant in the country as far as emissions and the output on it. By far, it will be able to meet it for quite a few years, and unless they just go crazy and won't let them have any particulate emissions, which, yes.
Will that help us in the overall cost of power?
Yes. If Prairie State is a low-cost generator, and if markets come back up, the excess we have, we're going to be able to sell at a premium because there are going to be coal plants shut down. I mean, Ameren made the notice last year that they were going to shut down, what was it, Chris, Meridosha and Hudsonville and Grand Tower. They were going to shut them down. I think we just saw some transmission projects from Ameren come across our desk that pretty much shows that Meridosha is going to be shut down, which is up between Quincy and Springfield, power plant up in there. They never put any pollution controls on that one, or Hudsonville or Grand Tower. So you're going to start seeing the coal plants shut down that just, it's not cost effective to put emission controls on. So they're just going to shut them down and mothball them. Well, that takes capacity out of the market, and that starts pushing pricing up. And so when that occurs, Prairie State will be highly sought after as far as a base load generator that's low cost, and people will want to buy parts of it off the market. So, because I think Peabody has like 125 or 150 megawatts that they just own that they will sell into the market and make money off of. Yeah. Anybody else? You guys just don't want to be on camera, do you?
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think there's any possibility that we'll have nuclear power plants in new construction?
That's the cleanest power plant is the nuclear power plant. But the downside is that they can't decide on where to put the waste. They're fighting on that Yucca Mountain out there yet, and I can only think of one license that's been approved by the National or Nuclear Regulatory Council in the last 5 or 6 years, and it was just recently. So that means that plant's 10 to 15 years away from being commercial. But I think that's, if it gets to that point where they don't allow coal-fired plants to run at all, it's got to be nuclear. I think I shared with you, or shared with some group, either was here or at the annual meeting, about there's 10,000 megawatts of wind in the Midwest ISO, and in that one hot summer day, would not have been this summer, but in 11, they only had 700 megawatts of it running. So it's, wind's not a base load, solar's not a base load. Your base load's nuclear, coal. Hydro is really not a base load, especially in the summertime. It's not a base load. The only other thing that would be considered somewhat base load is natural gas. So there's your three that you know you have to depend on to supply your needs, and we'll have to turn to something. And I think it would have to be nuclear, in long term. Anybody else? Well, I thank you for coming tonight. Then we will not do a retake. So I'm just gonna let you guys go. But I appreciate you coming. Good crowd here tonight, and you know means you think a lot about your co-op, and appreciate that. The employees work very hard to do a good job for you guys, and to keep the lights on for you. And we appreciate you coming out. So thank you very much, and you guys have a safe ride home.